Welcome, podcast listeners. This is the Heartache Connoisseur, Saturday edition. Sipping my pain all weekend long. Thanks for joining me. Oh, God, what am I doing down here? I mean, so this is quickly becoming one of my coping strategies. You know, I'll start to feel like I got to say something, and if I don't, I'm going to spontaneously combust. So here I am talking into this phone, for better or for worse. And this is, you know, I'm an introvert, for God's sakes. I am an INFJ, which means I'm sensitive. I'm introverted. I don't like conflict, but I want to make the world a better place. So I'm always torn, you know, between minding my own business and trying to help the human race. It's terrible to be an introverted idealist, but thank God there's Twitter. So, you know, Saturday morning rolls around and I finally have time to sit down and look at the stupid Twitter, and this guy tweets. I don't even know how it showed up in my feed, but I'll read it to you. This guy's named Jonathan Merritt. He's probably famous, but I don't know who he is. He says, "Do not assume that sexual abuse isn't prevalent in Christian organizations and churches. A reckoning is coming." So I read this and I'm like, oh God, here we go. An evolved, enlightened man who just happens to have a book coming out, taking a stand against sexual abuse, and I don't know if I can keep my mouth shut. Okay, here's what I say back. I say, wishing for our brothers and sisters to get theirs? Mercy we want for ourselves, justice we want for others, careful predicting reckonings. Right? Pretty witty, not too bad. You know, this guy's not going to respond to me. He's got 50,000 followers. I'm just a, you know, country psychiatrist out here in flyover country doing the Lord's work. And, but he does, shockingly. And what he says is, here's what he says. I want mercy for the victims who've languished under guilt, shame, and trauma for countless years. So while that's a true-ish cliche, it's lacking in nuance. Now I'm fired up, right? The dude just called me simple. That's what just happened. And I'll be damned if I'm going to let that fly. So I construct a reply. And I say, the nuance is implied in my assumption that one with your intellectual horsepower would have a tight grasp on stone casting. We all want the same thing. It's just all the nuanceless takes that fail to hold human brokenness in tension. That's some good shit, people. Right there. And I felt pretty good about that, except I didn't very long. I started to feel unsettled and like, what are you doing here? You're firing back at a guy who's like standing up for this group that has a pretty legitimate beef. Maybe you ought to reflect on what you're saying. So I did. I sat down and I reflected for a while and kind of considered the ins and outs of what he was saying. And meanwhile, this other guy chimes in. You know, I kind of find it funny that his Twitter profile pic is just this gray beard because of what the gray beard symbolizes. But he says, hold on. He says, gifting grace and mercy is not synonymous with remaining silent. Only those in power who perpetrate harm suggest or demand that. One can and should be about gifting grace to any who have wronged them, but refusing to remain silent is about being healthy. Oh, boy. So he's I don't know what he does for a living, but I'm a psychiatrist, and now he's telling me what healthy is, right? And now I'm really back on my haunches. And I start thinking about this. And I start thinking about what it is inside of me that's got me riled up. I'm sort of angry at first. Shelly's like, "Hey, it's Saturday. I thought we were going to hang out together. You seem kind of irritated." I'm like, "I am irritated." And but why? What the hell just happened? I mean, it's just a Twitter exchange. Can't you just have an opinion and walk away? Well, it turns out I can't. And upon reflection, I thought, you know what? These guys are exactly right. I am wrong about this. My knee-jerk response was to slay the messenger. I went right after the guy, cynically, standing up for a women in the Christian faith. Because the codependent people pleaser in me just was not okay with us having infighting. And to me, in that moment, way down deep, somewhere in my soul, it was more important to me to work at silencing the scapegoat than really taking a look at what they were saying and what the implications were of what they were saying. So I considered it. And it's not like I've never considered this before. I've probably even argued their point 1,000 times. It's just that sometimes I see all this stuff with these people taking a stance on Twitter, and I think the protesters. It's like your kids. This guy isn't, but a lot of times the reason I get so biased against this form of communication is because so many times it's kids or young adults that are naive, that are spouting things that are popular, and they're not rooted in any form of life experience or deep wisdom, and So I want to blow him off. But then old Graybeard chimes in. And I'm like, oh, God, that's exactly what I need right now. I need some anonymous mentor gently smacking me down in a public forum. You know what? I'm going to practice what I preach, so I'm going to take it like a man. And I'm going to reverse myself. And so I tweeted back. Here's what I said. After tweeting back, I prayed and reflected. You're both right. Health is speaking out, especially for men. My knee-jerk was to scapegoat the whistleblower, which is how abuse lives on. I have a daughter, for God's sake. Off to record a podcast to this effect. So here I am. I quit going to conservative evangelical churches a long time ago, but I put in my time, and I'm a senior member now. I'm at least a recognized, long-standing participant in the Christian community. I've been around a while, and I've been to all different kinds of churches and participated in pretty serious ways. And we got to cut this out. We can't be doing this. It's absolutely dead wrong. And it's time for me personally to say something about it. The last thing I want to do on a Saturday is kick a hornet's nest, whip up a frenzy, and detract emotionally from the pleasure of my weekend. But here I am doing it. Is it really even a hornet's nest? Isn't it more obvious than that? I mean, what? Then you got all this stuff in the media and these celebrities and Louis C.K. and, a while back it was Bill Cosby and like I'm fans of these guys, And I think there was a little part of me that just, I was a little bit in denial. I just was like, I just don't want to think about this. I want to be able to watch Louis C.K. comedy specials in the privacy of my own home with no guilt. What now I have to muddle through the fact that this guy is a known perp. The other thing that makes this very difficult for me personally is that I actually spend a good portion of time dealing with the gender wars, and I do couples counseling, and I sit down with people who are in the throngs of the worst marriage troubles. And not only that, I've seen people for years, just abusers and manipulators and people with deep wounds, controlling each other, attempting to control, and passive aggression, and neither side is innocent here, people. Let me tell you this right now. The wars that go on in people's homes between the sexes are severe, and they're two-sided. And they've been going on for centuries. Except that we have institutionalized within the four walls of our churches discriminatory practices and called them okay. And we've called people that have disagreed with that sinners. We've questioned their view of the scriptures. We've questioned whether or not they take their faith seriously, whether they're just displaying a fear of man, so to speak, that they're just trying to fall in line with the popular opinion of our culture. And I'm not here to debate the theology of this. I know what Paul said. I know how Jesus behaved. I know what role women played in the Old Testament. And I know how many fewer women heroes there are laid out for us in the Bible than there are men. I know Jesus was a man. I know we refer to God as Father, etc., etc. But I've progressed in my own faith to a place where the goodness of God and his overarching love for all has become so transcendent to me that the issues of what gender term to use to call him or her or it or each other has become so small and so insignificant in the face of the onslaught of goodness that is available there. We got to wrestle through this. I understand that. But these are deck chairs on the Titanic. I mean, let's get this figured out and move on, please. Can we get this one done? I've been watching this one unfold for a long time. I mean, listen, my mother is a Bible scholar, for God's sakes. I don't know how many times she's read through that thing. She taught me most of what I know about everything, including anything pertaining to the Christian faith. And thank God I don't look down on her, for God's sake. I mean, seriously, this is silly. I mean, she gets up in church and she preaches sermons, and she goes to the prison. She's led Bible studies. She's organized numerous teams. She's a servant. She has a heart for the poor, and it's beyond me how anybody could ever consider somebody like my mother as being lesser in any way or less qualified to speak out. And then, I got a daughter too. And I think about, she's 7. She's going to grow up someday and be a teenager. We got I'm not even going to name names because it's just not my style, but some pastors known to have been making passes at teenage girls. And is he a politician? I don't even know. But I got a daughter, and what am I going to tell her? I'm going to tell her, you don't tolerate that crap for 5 seconds. 1 second. You walk, you shove off. I don't care what the organization says. I don't care who the person is. I don't care. You do not ever put up with anybody objectifying you, abusing you, using you, saying you're lesser, weaker, less qualified because of your gender. It's just absolute silliness. Why is this difficult to believe that the character of a good God wouldn't contain elements of both the masculine and the feminine in equal proportions? Why would we assume that the father-like qualities supersede the feminine? I mean, Jesus came in the form of a man. I get that. But they had to pick one, for God's sakes. If they'd gone the other way, we'd be yelling about discrimination the other way. It's time that we put this one aside and settle it. It's time that women be given their due, given their place of honor and respect and equality in our homes and our churches. It's time that women for them to no longer be viewed as objects to serve us in our duties and our sexual proclivities, or whatever way you would like them to. Okay, well, you know what you're going to say. You're going to say, well, there's this animal inside of us, that this DNA, and this is the hierarchy of nature, and blah, blah, blah. Well, maybe so, but you know what? We got this cortex that lays over our animal brain, and we get to use that thing to make a decision about how we're going to behave and under what kind of worldview we're going to subject ourselves. We don't have to look at the way baboons do it or whatever it is and say, well, it's inevitable. And we don't have to look at the way it was done historically and say, that's the way it's always been, and that's the way it's always going to be. This is one that calls for the golden rule. This is one that calls for treat each other like you'd like to be treated. This is one that calls for all have fallen short of the glory of God. This is one that calls for there is no Jew nor Greek, no male nor female. This is one that calls for the acknowledgement and recognition that Jesus himself traipsed around with a prostitute. Somebody's got to go first on this. It's like all gender wars, all fights, all arguments. Somebody's got to go, you know what? Time out. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I've been doing this incorrectly. I'm willing to adjust my view of the world for this issue because it's that important. And it is. I've had so many women in my life that have changed me for the better over the years. I mean, I've had female pastors and counselors and co-workers, and of course my mother, and my grandmother, and siblings, and it's genuinely hard for me to fathom the headspace, honestly, of how a person within the confines of the church finds themselves in a place where their conscience is not screaming at them about how they're treating women. I don't understand how you get there. Is it what Paul said? Is that really it? Or is it that Paul said that the women were supposed to take a seat and stay covered up? Is that what it is? You're afraid if you go against that God's going to be mad at you and you're going to go to hell, right? What is it? Is it that you're a rule follower and you have all your I's dotted and your T's crossed and your P's and your Q's, and you got to do it just so? And you're afraid if you veer from what you were taught that you're being disloyal somehow, and that life's going to stop being okay, and you're going to lose your bearings, and you're not going to know what to do because you've gone against one of these precepts that they taught you long ago. And I feel for you. And you know what? I'll stand up for you too, church. I will. And I have, and I do. And I see the church as an organization that's done far more good than harm. And I'm not going to sit here and tell you that the church needs to be wiped off the face of the earth, and that that's the source of all this evil and conflict, and if none of us believed anything, we'd be better off. I think that's complete crap, and I will never endorse that for a second. And truthfully, it is with great humility and hesitation that I even say this, because the danger of making a public statement where we're calling our brethren to task is weighty, and it's not something I do lightly. I mean, I'm a hypocrite, right? I mean, I've done it all in spades. I don't want my record public, for God's sakes. None of us do. I don't want my thought life from the last hour transcribed. Are you kidding me? So I'm deeply aware of the hypocrisy that we're capable of. And so it is with some fear and trepidation and hesitancy that I sit here before you in front of this microphone saying what I'm saying now. Because I don't know the right answer all the time, and I've been wrong a lot of times. But this one's grinding to a halt. And I think that the winds of change are upon us. I think that the time has been now for quite a while. I think that you conservative evangelicals are really behind on this one. I really do. I think you're missing this one. And a caution to you women. I mean, let's say this one's fixed. Let's say this issue gets wiped off the face of the map here. It isn't going to make everything okay. And I've been in church communities where the females ran things. Whether or not there was a male up front or not didn't matter. That the true power brokers in the church were women. They were the opinion makers, and because of their ability to form social relationships much more efficiently than men, were able to gather support and enact their agenda much more effectively than the men. So I'm also not going to sit here and tell you that the power balance in any given church is always tilted towards men, because it isn't. I don't believe that that's true. And everybody's got to take a look under their own hood here. And if you're a woman and you've stuck around for this in an abusive situation or an abusive congregation, or if you've subjugated yourself to perpetration because it was expedient to you in some way, that one's on you, and you got to walk. You got to have the bravery and courage within you to walk away from that situation. And I realize it's complicated, and a lot of times there are many, many strings attached that keep people from leaving situations that are difficult. But that's one of the most effective ways to deal with an abuser, is to just starve them out. Just don't give them anything to abuse. You know? It's complicated. I realize, I'm sitting here saying have courage, have no fear, yet you've systematically had your dignity stripped from you in so many ways for so many years. I'm not sure some of you would know what to do out of prison. You're like the institutionalized criminal. If they let you free, what are you going to do? There's that factor. So that's about all I got on this one. It's a tough one, and you know what? Life's short. We're just going to put this out. I'm going to share it with some people that I think will appreciate it. I hope it's heard. I hope it's influential. And before you blow me off, please understand, if there ever was a person who took their time on something like this and really is coming to you from a place of a pretty long-standing and deep consideration of the human condition, through my work as a psychiatrist and observation of male-female dynamics and power balances and hierarchies. And, I have to say, I am very careful about what I say on things like this. And it's important that we stand up for it. It is emotionally healthy. These guys on Twitter are right. This guy, it is emotionally healthy to speak out against something that you know is wrong and put yourself in the position of being a scapegoat. Many of you out there have been scapegoats. That's what it is when the system, that sick system, decides to blame you for the problem because you're blowing a whistle, because you're doing something that makes it difficult for us to all enable each other anymore. And we're all trained to not be a scapegoat. And there's such a thing as a sin of omission. That's when you don't speak up and you don't stand up. You are enabling and you are committing, quote, a sin, unquote, in the same way as the person who is perpetrating by not speaking out. It's a sin of omission. It is a breach of your duty. So if I'm going to sit down here and pontificate about emotional health, I'm going to put my money where my mouth is on this one. I feel compelled. I need to get it off my chest. I'm watching this stuff unfold in the media, and it's not something I can go to sleep easily anymore and ignore without at least putting my own thoughts out there in one form or another. And if you disagree with me, fine. We can all agree to disagree, and we're all a work in progress, and we're all trying to be and get better and evolve into something hopefully tomorrow that's a bit more kind than it was the day before. So thanks for listening. Check us out. You know where to find us. All the social media, blah, blah, blah. The Heartache Connoisseur, Twitter, Facebook, SoundCloud, and iTunes podcast, all that. Thanks for listening, people. After I recorded this podcast, I decided to include a song. It's called Mama's Pockets. I wrote it recently and recorded it, and it's inspired by the relationship I have with my mom. And I think the themes fit nicely with this discussion, so I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
What's inside your pockets, Mom? In the pockets of your pain. What's inside your pockets, Mom? 'Cause your feet just wanna dance. Open up your pockets, Mama, I really wanna see. Open up your pockets and dance with me. Dance with me. Oh, go on, dance alone. Dance for free. Just dance your way home. And don't forget your papa. Don't forget your son. 'Cause the dance is your salvation. So dance with everyone. Open up your pockets, Mama. How'd they get so full? What's inside your pockets, Mama? Why won't you stand tall? Open up those pockets, Mama. I know what to do. Let the good Lord carry everything for you. Dance with me. Oh, go on, dance alone. Dance for free. Just dance your way home. And don't forget your papa. Don't forget your son. The dance is your salvation. So dance with everyone. This ain't no secret, you can let this get around. The trouble with your burdens, you gotta wanna lay 'em down. I ain't no serpent, ain't no wizard or a king, just a man who's been unburdened, and that is why I sing, dance with me. Dance with me, or go on, dance alone, dance for free. Just dance your way home, and don't forget your papa, mama, don't forget your son, 'cause the dance is your salvation. So dance with everyone. Open up your pockets, man. I know what to do. Let the good Lord carry everything for you.